Welcome everyone to this explainer of the Khandwa village mystery. We are about to dive into a deeply unsettling, highly structured system of survival. Just imagine living in a place where the setting sun isn't just a signal to wrap up your workday, it's a strict, non-negotiable deadline for your actual life. Today, we're unpacking the chilling rules and the hidden mechanics of a village that is quite literally under siege by supernatural predators. We're relying entirely on the terrifying first-hand accounts and lore from our source material. So get comfortable and pay close attention, because I'm telling you the margin for error in this village is absolutely zero.
Okay, let's just get right into it. The number 7. In Khandwa village, this isn't just an hour on the clock. It is a hard boundary between the living and the dead. As dusk approaches, you can feel this heavy, suffocating panic start to grip the streets. The village bell starts ringing, echoing through the alleys, signaling that the fatal deadline of 7 p.m. is basically here. It's a literal race against time. Because if you're caught outside when that clock strikes 7, you do not survive. No exceptions. You can literally hear the ingrained panic in this quote from the village crier. It's almost 7. Head towards your homes. It's this daily, inescapable ritual of terror. We see characters in the source material like the cynical Farouk or the strict, rule-abiding Arjun, urgently having to navigate this reality every single day. The whole community relies on this extreme isolation just to survive the night.
Part 1. The 7 p.m. Curfew Survival Protocol.
Now, going home and locking your doors, that makes logical sense, right? You're avoiding a physical threat. But look at that third step. Why draw the curtains tight? Well, Arjun explicitly explains to his young son Samar that the curtains are definitely not just for hiding. They are a critical defense mechanism. You draw them shut so you can't see outside. You can't make accidental eye contact. And most importantly, you cannot engage in any kind of conversation with what is lurking on the other side of the glass. Because looking out, that is exactly how they get you.
Part 2. Psychological Warfare. Deception at the Door.
The villagers call these entities the Bashinde. And listen, these are not your typical mindless, roaring movie monsters. They are former residents. These are people who failed to make it inside by 7 p.m., were killed, and have now become part of the night themselves. And here's the truly terrifying part. They use your own memories, your love, and your grief as weapons against you. They literally stand outside doors, perfectly mimicking the voices and appearances of your lost loved ones, just begging to be let in. This brilliantly illustrates that psychological terror we're talking about. This is a direct quote from an entity standing outside Arjun's house, and it is perfectly mimicking his deceased wife, Mira. The entity speaks directly to their young son, Samar, claiming she isn't actually dead. She was just lost, and it begs him to open the door. It completely exploits a child's desperate, innocent desire to see his mom again. And guys, it almost works. Samar nearly unlatches the door before his dad violently pulls him away and cuts the lights. So the real kicker here is the heartbreaking contrast we're looking at. On the left, we have the real human Mira, a loving mother who, as we'll find out shortly, lost her life because she tried to help a crying child in the dark. But on the right, that's the entity wearing her face. It's a manipulative predator that now uses a mother's love as a tool to trick her own son. It demonstrates exactly why Arjun was forced to hide his child in a pitch-black, silent room, completely ignoring those desperate pleas echoing from the porch.
Part 3. Broken Bus Tragedy. Origin of the Rules.
Let's wind the clock back about 7 months to see how this started for Arjun. He and Mira were delayed coming back from the city, and they didn't arrive at the village until 4 a.m. Obviously, every single door was already locked tight. Knowing they were being actively hunted, they hid inside an abandoned, broken-down bus on the edge of town. But at around 4:30 a.m., Mira heard the cries of a terrified child outside. Believing it was a real kid locked out of their house, she left to the safety of the bus, and it was a trap. The entities swarmed her instantly. Arjun was trapped inside that bus, completely paralyzed by sheer terror, forced to listen to the horrific sounds outside. He couldn't save her. He just had to wait until the sunrise finally chased the creatures away at 6 a.m. Part 4, Secrets of Khandwa, Village Mysteries. Now, that very same abandoned bus sits right next to the home of Farouk. He's a villager known for his totally cynical attitude and his blatant disregard for the local superstitions. Young Samar, who is just full of questions about his mom's death, sneaks out to confront Farouk. And this brings us to a really fascinating comparison of survival strategies. Arjun relies on strict, unwavering obedience, hiding, turning off lights, zero contact. But Farouk, he uses calculated defiance. When Samar visits Farouk's house, the entity of Mira actually shows up outside. And to Samar's absolute sheer horror, Farouk does not hide. Instead, he opens the front door wide open and casually talks to the monster wearing Mira's face, leaving the threshold completely exposed.
Which leads us to a massive question, one that totally shifts our understanding in this explainer. Why did the monsters spare Arjun inside that broken bus 7 months ago? The doors were broken, the windows were totally shattered, the entities surrounded that bus all night long, yet they never once stepped inside to get him. Why? And similarly, when Farouk leaves his front door wide open, why does the entity of Mira just stand there at the threshold, begging him to step outside, but physically refusing to cross into the house itself?
Part 5, Ultimate Protection, the Hidden Loophole. Well, it turns out Farouk isn't just some reckless cynic. The guy is incredibly observant. He actually witnessed the attack on Mira from his window that night. He watched the entities swarm, but he specifically noticed that despite clearly wanting to, they could not enter the broken bus to get to Arjun. So the very next morning, Farouk conducted his own investigation. He walked right into that abandoned bus to find out exactly what stopped them. And he found a protective ward hanging inside. What he found was the Rudraksha Mala. It's a sacred bead rosary. It was just hanging there inside the bus. And it turns out it acts as an absolute, impenetrable barrier against the Bashindai. It was never the metal walls of the bus that saved Arjun. It was this specific spiritual object. The entities physically cannot pass a threshold that is protected by it. And that is exactly why Farouk can confidently stand there with his door wide open. He tells a terrified Samar, "I did all the testing before hanging this Rudraksha on my door." He took the supernatural terror of Khandwa village and grounded it into a testable, realistic framework. He figured out the mechanics. He knows the rules better than anyone else in town, which is why he, and now young Samar sitting there in his living room, are completely safe, even with a monster staring right at them from the porch. The rules of Khandwa village are absolutely brutal. They demand perfect compliance, or they offer sudden death. Whether you choose Arjun's path of hiding in the dark behind drawn curtains, or Farouk's path of relying on sacred, tested defenses, one thing is certain: the dark is never truly empty. Which leaves us with one final, deeply unsettling thought for you to take away from this explainer today. Always check what's hanging on your door before nightfall, because honestly, you just never know who or what might come knocking.